sweetheart. It's okay. I'll never let her take you away. Trina!
Doing?
I can explain. On the 8th of January 2009, I decided that I was going to build a computer, and I ordered an Antec Solo Quiet mini tower case and paired it with an Asus B5B Premium Socket 775 motherboard. I stuck a dual-core processor and some RAM into that, and I was off to the races. Mass Effect, Rome Total War, all kinds of new and interesting games were opened up to me thanks to its power. Then it died. Oh, like the mighty ship of Theseus, this case has housed many parts from many different systems since then, but the general internals have remained roughly the same since
2011,
when I replaced the motherboard with another Asus AM2 socket compatible one instead, and unleashed the mighty AMD Phenom 2. Different hard drives, monitors and peripherals have been and gone since then, but for the next 14 years that processor and motherboard combination held steady. Unlike a museum piece, this computer was what's commonly known as a daily driver. For roughly 5,000 days, it was used almost every day for tasks both intensive and trivial. Now this piano black case sits on the floor of my room, taking up space and not doing much of anything, and Lady Karina tells me to get rid. This old warhorse has run everything from XP through to Windows 10 and from Ubuntu to Linux Mint, and instead of throwing it out, I've decided to repurpose it. You see, there's a little niche that no amount of emulation can touch for me, a period between the late 90s to the mid 2000s that is inaccessible, because my machine isn't powerful enough to do emulation using 86box, which is the only reliable way to get these games running when Wine fails me. VirtualBox withdrew drivers from it, and VMware on an i5? No chance. Sure, most of them will work on Wine, and some of them have even been remastered. What about the ones that aren't? You know the ones. They aren't for sale anymore, and never got a digital re-release on Steam or GOG, or a boatload of fan patches, either due to rights issues, or because they never got a source port or engine recreation, or anything that reliably works in their favour on modern systems. You see, the gaming world didn't just stop in 1997. Granted, over the next decade it got demonstrably worse, eventually degrading into what we have now. But there's still some really good games that came out, and you just can't run them for love nor money on modern hardware. And you know the real big problem we're facing? Even the techiest of tech nerds are struggling to get them working using emulation, whether that be hardware or software emulation. Fortunately, there is another solution, and I think you see where I'm going with this. No, not Windows 98. You can install that capably enough in DOSBox X these days, or 86box. Look, even I can do it. It's woeful when trying to play any 3D games though, defeating the purpose entirely. Maybe I'll play something less demanding on that setup in the future. My answer is the mighty Windows XP. Microsoft's ludicrously long-lived OS that had the most market share for 8 years running, and kept getting updates until 10 years ago. 10 years without updates. I think it's safe to say I'm not going to connect it to the internet. A lot of people are probably wondering why I didn't choose Windows 98. Well, firstly, the games I'm talking about are a little too new for 98. Also, the drivers for most of my hardware support XP, but 98 would have been a bridge too far. There's no way a GTX 960 is gonna work. Cue the video of someone somewhere getting it to work on Windows 98 for some reason. Besides, if I really want to play games from 1997 to 2000, I have compatibility mode. It was good enough for me in the early 2000s, and it'll be good enough for me now. Plus, it's a lot better than the compatibility mode that later Windows versions had. So, with solid-state drive in hand, I start attaching wires and cables in order to reinvent this big black box one final time. The first step was deciding what version of XP I wanted to use. A legitimate copy, a patched up version from the internet, or a dodgy performance edition I downloaded in 2009. Clearly there was only one option. I created a bootable USB with the OS on it, and thought about adding Snappy Driver Installer to the mix. According to the interwebs, this will connect to the worldwide cyberweb and download the drivers automagically. What a time to be alive. Except as previously mentioned, the last thing I want to do is connect to the internet with a pirated copy of XP. Fortunately, I can download the entire package for 40 gigabytes and use it offline instead. This sounds much more sensible, and is also larger than the hard drive I used for XP gaming. So it won't fit on a USB thumbstick, but it certainly will on an old USB hard drive that I randomly pulled from the top of my clothing cupboard. Now, I could use my cheap Chinese capture device from my Mister to get footage of this XP gaming machine, but instead I chose HyperCam 2 because it's funny, the registered version, so no nostalgic watermark. The ludicrous specs of the machine are more than enough to record and play games simultaneously, right? I guess I'm about to find out. Spoiler alert. The answer is obviously not very well, so I'll use the cheap Chinese capture device in future. I turn the PC on, but nothing happens. Oh, right, I should probably plug it in. I turn the PC on, and it doesn't like that. Oh, right, I should probably put the hard drive in. I insert my USB hub into the USB extender that's connected to my machine, and hope that the hot swapping doesn't randomly destroy anything. It shouldn't, but you never know. Turns out this actually works fine. Best to do it when both machines are off though. The problem was that even after setting the USB thumbstick to first boot in my boot order, it didn't detect the XP setup. Instead, I used a laptop with Windows on it, and re-downloaded the ISO because I deleted it by accident. Then reflashed the stick using Win setup from USB. Having done that, I changed my hard drive configuration from AHCI to IDE, so that it would play nice with the old OS. Windows installed in a flash, which makes sense since it was on a solid state drive. Though putting it on a flash drive would have made for a better pun, or at least it would have installed in a flash had I formatted the hard drive beforehand, or hit the quick format option in setup. I did neither. So I may absolutely suck at hardware matters, but XP? Oh, I know XP. Computer? Yes, hello, computer. Can you start Windows XP? Wait, I was supposed to do a Scottish accent, it went Irish. Uh-oh. I plug in my USB hard drive and it's in exFAT format, which Windows XP doesn't recognize. Guess it's back to formatting for me. This standard was introduced with Vista. Well, maybe I should install Vista and no, let's not do that. I finally get to work, installing HyperCam 2 and then getting the drivers with the snappy driver installer. Because whenever you need to do something with your PC system, it's a great idea to download a random torrent from Russia and allow the contents unfettered access. Trust me, I've constructed a list of great games I want to try out at some point in the future. The titles I chose to test this on are classics from my teenage years: Lego Island and FIFA 98 Road to the World Cup, which both have the unfortunate commonality of being made for Windows 95 but not DOS, and being digitally unavailable to purchase in 2024, having come out in that black hole era of 1997. They're also both notoriously difficult to get working. After this endeavour, I'll move on to some XP classics that aren't on Steam or GOG, and maybe a few that are a bit better. That's right, playing them on XP is actually better than playing them now. Did any of this work at all? Let's find out. HyperCam 2 installed just fine, but without proper graphics drivers, it was like swimming my way through a lake of molasses. I still managed to boot up Snappy Driver Installer, and to my surprise, it worked perfectly. Unfortunately, what it didn't do was install an NVIDIA graphics driver. Sound driver? No problem, here you go. Graphics? What are those? Well, you know where I found the driver? The NVIDIA website. Turns out that my exact graphics card was one of the last to support XP. What are the chances? So it's back to glorious GeForce experience I go. Unfortunately, I was missing the Windows imaging component from my system, so the installation couldn't continue. Back to hot swapping USB cables again. This happens one more time I'm dragging my laptop down here. Well, it turns out that didn't work either. So I typed this sentence into a laptop and download a slightly later driver to see if that works instead. No, it did not. Why not, Lawnie? Well, because it was a GTX 970 stuck in there, not a GTX 960. The GTX 970 is totally unsupported. Fortunately, Matt Pills had the answer. Just add the graphics card to the approved list of devices. Wait, what? Yeah, really. Windows XP in widescreen. Now to finally get to the entire point of this venture. The games. I skillfully acquire the ISO files, and while I used daemon tools back in the day to mount things, this time I download WinCDMU. I mean, if worst comes to worst, I can always reconnect the DVD drive, though that would involve having to get down on my knees on a hardwood floor. When you reach a certain age, that's not something you plan on repeating in a hurry. One successful mounting of the ISO later, and I'm off through a world of charming installation screens, which ensure that my computer has all the right bits and pieces that the Performance Edition may have neglected to install. The two compatibility mode games have patches that work in their favour, the Lego Island Builder and Gala's FIFA 98 patch. Compatibility mode was able to get them both working, with one massive caveat: software rendering. This still beats all the other methods for me, so I'm going to go with it. The point is that compatibility mode works, even on problematic titles. Just imagine what I'll be able to finagle into working when I test more forgiving games. So in conclusion, if you've got a dusty old machine and want to play a load of games from the mid-90s through to the mid-2000s, throw XP at it. You might be surprised by just how much fun it can be. Another scripted video complete. Now to relax and unwind. Why do I feel like I'm forgetting something?
Part 2 actually playing the games. Coming soon.